This is the chilling story of Peter Chadwick, the millionaire, who thought he could outsmart justice. But how far could he really run? Stay tuned to uncover the dark secrets and unbelievable twists behind this true crime. Peter Chadwick was born into a wealthy family in England and lived a life of luxury and privilege. His father, a prosperous real estate investor, earned a multi-billion-dollar income, which enabled Peter to receive the finest education. From a young age, he attended elite schools and built a strong academic foundation. When Peter reached his teenage years, his family moved to the United States, settling in Pennsylvania. He completed his high school education in Bryn Mawr. After high school, Peter pursued higher education at Arizona State University. During this time, he met Quee Choo, commonly known as QC. QC hailed from a Malaysian family with extensive wealth and connections. She was the younger sister of a notable businesswoman who owned the largest latex glove manufacturing company in the country. Despite their contrasting personalities, Peter and QC felt an instant attraction to one another. While Peter was reserved and socially awkward, QC was known for her outgoing nature and quick wit. Their differences initially attracted them to one another, and they continued to date throughout their college years. Peter's acquaintances described him as notoriously difficult to get to know, whereas QC was charismatic and engaging. She was the life of the party, always making people around her laugh. Peter and QC married and settled in Newport Beach, California. This location was home to millionaires, with lavish mansions lining the streets. Peter and QC fit right in, driving luxury cars and wearing designer clothes. They lived a life of luxury, surrounded by others who shared a similar lifestyle. While Peter managed his father's properties, he spent much of his time at home, while QC stayed at home caring for the house and their growing family. As a dedicated and driven parent, QC ensured that her 3 sons had the best that life had to offer. She believed in the importance of a well-rounded education and encouraged them to study hard and achieve high grades. Additionally, she motivated them to participate in extracurricular activities and sports, teaching them the value of teamwork and physical fitness. QC wanted her sons to have a global perspective, exposing them to different cultures and languages in the hopes that they would develop a broader understanding of the world. She believed in the value of travel and frequently took her sons on trips to broaden their horizons. From visiting ancient ruins to experiencing diverse cultures, QC viewed travel as a valuable learning experience that would shape her sons into well-rounded young men. Despite their wealth and success, the Chadwick family remained private and low-key. They preferred to keep to themselves, focusing on their family and close-knit relationships. In their neighborhood, QC and Peter were well known, often seen picking up their sons from the bus stop. On Wednesday, October 10, 2012, on a bright and sunny 70-degree day in California, QC Peter's 2 youngest sons got off the school bus, expecting to see one of their parents. However, neither parent was at the bus stop. A neighbor noticed the boys standing alone at the bus stop past 4 p.m., immediately sensing something was wrong. It was unlike either QC or Peter to leave their children stranded. The neighbor picked up the boys and drove them home, but there was no answer at the door. Although Peter's car was not in the driveway, QC's car was present. Upon arriving at the Chadwick residence, the neighbor noticed several packages on the doorstep, suggesting the family had not been home all day. Since QC was a stay-at-home parent and Peter worked from home, someone should have been present to collect the deliveries. However, no one seemed to be home. The neighbor took QC and Peter's youngest sons back to her home and notified the police, requesting a welfare check on the Chadwick residence. When officers arrived at the Chadwick home in Newport Beach, they thoroughly examined the exterior and found no signs of forced entry. After gaining access to the house, they entered the living room, which appeared meticulously clean, with distinct vacuum lines on the carpet. As the officers walked through the house, they saw family photos showcasing what seemed to be a typical happy family. In the kitchen, the officers noticed a meal being prepared but left unfinished, as if the person making the meal had vanished into thin air and ingredients were scattered, indicating that the dish had been interrupted abruptly. After finding no leads on the lower floor, the detectives moved upstairs. Upon entering QC and Peter's bedroom, the officers discovered signs of violence. The bathroom floor rug was bunched in the corner, a broken vase lay on the edge of the tub, and there was visible blood. This prompted the officers to declare the home a crime scene and call for backup. As crime scene investigators arrive at the Chadwick residence, they immediately noticed that a safe in QC and Peter's bedroom had been opened, with its contents missing. This suggested that money and important documents might have been stolen. The empty safe further intensified their suspicions regarding the couple's whereabouts. Without concrete leads, detectives contacted various institutions, including hospitals, jails, and the coroner's office, conducting a thorough search to see if anyone matching the couple's description had been admitted or taken into custody. However, their efforts yielded no results, raising even more concerns about QC and Peter's fate. On October 11, 2012, the San Diego Police Department received a distressing phone call from Peter Chadwick. He claimed to be calling from an Arco gas station approximately 100 miles from the Chadwick residence in Newport Beach. During the call, Peter exhibited erratic behavior and rambled incoherently. According to Peter, on October 10th, he had hired a man named Juan to provide an estimate for a painting job at his home. Peter stated that he had come across Juan while checking out an apartment complex he managed. As Juan went upstairs to assess the walls for painting, Peter remained downstairs working on his computer. While engrossed in his work, Peter suddenly heard his wife QC shout his name from the upstairs master bedroom. Instinctively, he rushed upstairs to find Juan strangling QC in the bathtub, while also holding her underwater. Panicked and terrified, Peter attempted to intervene, but Juan pulled out a Swiss Army knife, keeping him at bay and continuing the assault on QC. Peter claimed that an altercation ensued between him and Juan, but QC was already dead by the time this occurred. After QC's death, Peter alleged that Juan coerced him into wrapping her body in a green comforter. They then carried QC's body into the back of Peter's Lexus. He further claimed that Juan forced him to drive around Southern California with QC's body in the back seat. According to Peter, they were stopped by a California Highway Patrol officer, but were allowed to continue. Peter said he drove with Juan and QC's body to an Arco gas station near the Mexican border, where Juan contacted a friend referred to as Quee upon Kai's arrival. They transferred QC's body into a van and fled, leaving Peter behind at the gas station. While on the phone with the dispatcher, Peter stated that he believed Juan and Quee were heading towards Mexico to dismember and dispose of QC's body. Police officers met Peter Chadwick at the Arco station and brought him in for an interview. During the interview, detectives noted several concerning details. Peter was covered in scratches, suggesting an altercation had occurred. Additionally, there was a human bite mark on his forearm, raising further suspicions. When questioned about the events surrounding his wife's disappearance, Peter displayed no emotion, which contributed to the detectives' suspicion. Furthermore, Peter showed no concern for his children during the interview, failing to ask about them or express any worry for their safety or well-being, which was yet another red flag for the detectives. With Peter in custody, the detectives returned to the Chadwick home to continue their investigation. They observed that the walls had been freshly painted. This discovery puzzled the detectives, as it contradicted Peter's assertion that he had recently enlisted Juan for a painting estimate. Why would someone hire a painter to estimate the cost of a house that had just been painted? This inconsistency further cast doubt on Peter's narrative and led the investigators to continue searching for evidence to support his claims. The Chadwick family resided in a gated community with a manned guard, shack, and video surveillance, which provided the detectives with valuable footage. In the footage from October 10th at 1:30 p.m., the detectives saw Peter Chadwick's SUV leaving the premises. However, they could not confirm whether one or QC's body was in the car. Further investigation revealed additional video footage of Peter's vehicle passing through a toll booth on the freeway, which suggested there was only one person in the car. This discrepancy with Peter's original story raised further suspicion among the detectives. The detectives next interviewed the California Highway Patrol officer who had stopped Peter Chadwick on October 10th. The officer confirmed that Peter was alone in the vehicle. In addition to the video footage, detectives found a handwritten letter by QC highlighting Peter's disturbing Google searches, including one about how to torture. When detectives reviewed QC's medical records, they found she had recently been diagnosed with sexually transmitted diseases, which Peter had brought home due to his affairs and failure to use protection. Several of QC's close friends came forward with information during the investigation, revealing that although QC had mentioned the idea of divorce, Peter was resistant. According to QC's friends, Peter would never agree to a divorce, as it would threaten his financial stability. QC had access to substantial funds, and a divorce would mean Peter losing access to this wealth. On October 11, 2012, Peter was arrested and charged with the murder of his wife. He pleaded not guilty to the charges, maintaining his innocence throughout the court proceedings. A week after Peter's arrest, his attorney contacted detectives, stating that Peter was willing to provide the location of QC's body. Peter claimed the location was in South San Diego, specifically Wildcat Canyon, a mountainside area off the beaten path. Additionally, Peter mentioned that the body could be found in a dumpster in the area. Upon receiving this information, crime scene investigators quickly went to the specified location. Upon reaching Wildcat Canyon, they focused on the dumpster Peter described. Inside the dumpster, they found several items belonging to QC, including her purse, identification card, and a significant amount of cash totaling $20,000. They also discovered a green comforter in the dumpster, which upon closer examination contained arms and legs, leading them to believe it was part of QC's body. This discovery was disheartening, as it confirmed they had indeed found QC's remains. An autopsy performed on the body at the medical examiner's office confirmed it was QC, revealing that the cause of death was strangulation. Despite being charged with murder, Peter Chadwick was granted a $1 million bail by the judge due to his lack of a criminal record and ties to the state. Given his 3 sons, the conditions of his parole included surrendering his passport, ensuring he could not leave the country, and prohibiting him from having any contact with QC's family. While out on bail, Peter lived with his father in Santa Barbara. During this time, he attended all his court hearings and spent quality time with his sons. However, unknown to the detectives, Peter was planning to escape. He had emptied his safe deposit box and made several cash advances on his credit cards. When it was discovered that Peter had gone missing, a massive search began to locate him. Due to Peter's wealth, the detectives faced difficulties in tracking him. They eventually sought assistance from the US Marshals, hoping their resources and expertise would help locate Peter. After analyzing footage from the airport, detectives discovered that Peter had taken a cab to Santa Barbara Airport. Upon arrival, he waited in the airport for a few minutes before departing again. The detectives obtained footage of the cab that picked up Peter and transported him to an unknown location. To gain further insights into Peter's whereabouts, detectives conducted a thorough search of his home in Santa Barbara. During the search, they found a significant amount of literature and DVDs related to Canada, as well as books on how to live life on the run. After analyzing the evidence, The detectives concluded that Peter was likely heading to the Washington border with the intention of entering Canada. Their suspicions were further fueled by statements from Peter's sons, who revealed that their father had informed them of his plans to flee. Peter had shared his intention to cross the Canadian border on foot, find a menial job to save money, and ultimately reunite with his sons. For 3 years, the US Marshals followed up on leads that Peter had been spotted in Canada, but the efforts repeatedly hit dead ends. The hunt for Peter Chadwick, who was wanted for fleeing justice, spanned several years and involved numerous officers and leads. However, the case remained unsolved, and the search seemed futile. In August 2018, detectives decided to renew their interest in Peter Chadwick's case, believing a more aggressive approach was necessary to bring him to justice. A detective approached the Public Information Office at their department and discussed reintroducing the case on a global scale. After careful consideration, the detective and the public information officer agreed that a renewed push was necessary. They believed Peter Chadwick could have escaped to anywhere, so it was vital to share his story as widely as possible. Given the popularity of podcasts in 2018, the detective and the public information officer thought a podcast on the case could effectively attract new leads and raise awareness. They named the podcast Countdown to Capture, and the first episode aired in September 2018. The podcast immediately sparked a surge of interest in the Chadwick case. The tip line received tips from across worldwide, including places as far away as Ukraine and Japan. People claimed to have seen Peter Chadwick in various locations, providing valuable information to further assist in the efforts to track Peter Chadwick. The US Marshals placed him on their 15 most wanted list and offered a $100,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. This reward increased awareness and incentivized individuals to come forward with any information they had. During the final episode of the podcast Countdown to Capture, the lead detective left a direct message for Peter, urging him to end the case and consider the impact of his actions on his sons. In a stern tone, the detective warned Peter that the authorities were closing in on him. As the search for Peter continued, detectives and US Marshals learned that Peter had not headed toward Canada when he fled, but instead went to Mexico. They discovered that Peter was hiding in a city that allowed him to blend in and go unnoticed. A charming town in the state of Mexico is known for its traditional colonial architecture, brightly painted buildings, and cobblestone streets. The city is famous for its colorful markets and traditional handicrafts, such as ceramics, textiles, and woodwork. Peter checked into a cheap hotel using the name Paul Cook and introduced himself as a relative of those who disappeared on Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. This clever tactic helped him gain the locals' trust and maintain a low profile. During his time in, Peter sought the help of a local land agent to find an apartment. The land agent later described him as strange and without a soul. Despite his peculiar behavior, Peter managed to establish a connection with a woman named Claudia Sato, and their friendship grew stronger. In May 2016, Peter, Claudia, and Claudia's sister went on a trip to a concert. During the journey, Claudia's sister noticed Peter driving erratically and asked him to slow down. Instead of complying, Peter continued his reckless driving, leading to an accident. Claudia Sato was killed in the accident, while her sister sustained serious injuries and was in a coma for 15 days. Peter walked away with only a limp. After the tragic accident that resulted in Claudia's death and her sister's severe injuries, the district attorney's office contacted the Sato family and asked them to sign a document granting Paul Cook immunity in Claudia's death. The document absolved Paul Cook of any wrongdoing, portraying him as a good person uninvolved in the incident. Faced with immense distress caused by Claudia's death and her sister's suffering, the family agreed to sign the papers without asking questions. However, once the initial shock and grief subsided, they realized their mistake, but it was too late. Peter Chadwick, the main suspect, had fled once again. As the search continued, the US Marshals tracked Peter to Valle de Bravo. Valle de Bravo is a quaint and charming town in the Mexican state of Puebla, known for its picturesque scenery, crystal-clear lakes, and lush forests. Peter became alarmed after seeing an investigative report broadcast about him. 2 hours later, when his iPad stopped functioning, he was convinced that the marshals had located him. Consequently, Peter hurriedly left the town and headed to Cholula. Cholula is considered one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, with a history that spans thousands of years. It is renowned for its rich heritage, cultural significance, and the famous Cholula hot sauce named after the town. Cholula is also known for its traditional music and dance, often featuring colorful costumes and vibrant performances. In August 2019, the detectives received a tip that helped the US Marshals pinpoint Peter's location. Within 24 hours, they found and arrested Peter. He was then extradited to the United States to face charges for the murder of his wife. Peter pleaded guilty to the charge, admitting his culpability. The judge overseeing the case sentenced Peter to 15 years to life, reflecting the gravity of his actions. After years on the run, Peter Chadwick was finally brought to justice, but the scars left behind are immeasurable. What do you think about this case? Was the sentence enough for the crime he committed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more gripping true crime stories that reveal the truth behind the headlines. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.